Yeah, because the idea was
it's like something weird.
Will you hug your wife for me?
It's because it might be Robin.
One for each cheek.
Maybe that was his previous.
the idea was we would check to make sure that what they're invoicing us matched our deduction code. But
Okay. I didn't say there was one. I just summoned you, that's all.
yes.
Are you really going to use the gavel?
No, I'm just going to have it in front of me, just in case.
Power hungry.
Did you guys see the gavel that the county commissioners had?
Yeah, that big hammer. That's what you need, dropping the hammer.
Yes, they do.
It's 6 o'clock now.
All right, 6 o'clock. Folks, thank you so much for coming tonight. At this time,
Do you want to wait for the on-air sign?
He does.
oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
How do I know about this? Are we there?
On there.
There we go.
Are we on air now? Okay, great. All right, folks, welcome to the Xenia City Council. Before we do our call to order and roll call, we're going to have an invocation. So I'm going to ask Pastor Greg Delaney if you'd come. And if everybody else will please rise, and as soon as we get done with this, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. Greg has been involved with the Xenia community for a long time, and has been active in the recovery movement and work here in Xenia, Greene County, the state of Ohio, and nationally as well too. And he's on an advisory group with the governor as well at this point. So Greg's glad to have you here with us, and glad to have you coming and leading us in the invocation tonight. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. James 1:5 says, if any of you lack wisdom to guide them through a decision or circumstance, they are to ask of our benevolent God, who gives to everyone generously and without rebuke or blame, and it will be given to them. Let's go to that benevolent God. Father, we just come to you tonight, and we come just seeking your guidance, seeking your counsel through this gathering and through this meeting. Lord, the folks that have taken this mantle of being a part of the leadership of this city, I love most of them very much because I've had the chance to know most of them, and those that I don't know well, I know that you love them, and I love them because you do. And so, Lord, tonight we just thank you. We thank you for their dedication. We thank you for their commitment. We also thank you for their discernment. And Lord, we just ask tonight that you bless this proceeding, that you watch over it, that you guide it, that you lead it, and that what comes from it will prove beneficial for all who are here and all who they are called and willing to serve. But we do all of that tonight in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thanks, Ray. If you please face the flag, and we'll say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. You may be seated. All right, before we start, if anyone like myself happen to have a cell phone out there that's not muted, if you you please go ahead and mute that, we'd appreciate that. And now I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Xenia City Council. And Mr. Duke, will you please call the roll?
Vice President Herschel.
Here.
Councilman Scrivens.
Here.
Councilwoman Dean. Councilman Branham.
Here.
Councilman Dean.
Here.
Mayor Mays.
Here.
President Smith.
Councilman Herschel, I would like to make a motion to excuse President Smith for a work conflict.
All right. Got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded. Any comments? All right. Let's go ahead and read the roll.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
Vice President Herschel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Great. I just want to mention that President Smith had informed us well in advance. He had a family commitment that was planned well before this meeting tonight, and wish he and his family well.
Mr. President, I'd like to
Yes.
make the motion to excuse Councilwoman Rebecca Dean for work as well.
For work as well. All right, great. We have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any comments? Great. Let's go ahead and vote if we could. Roll call, please.
Councilman Scruton?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
And Vice President Urschel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Great. I will make one comment that in the council, help me, Ms. Law Director, our
Rules of council.
rules of council that we've just passed, we have requested that all council members, if you're not able to attend a meeting, that you please notify the council president, not another member of council. And the reason we do this is that it's important on, especially if we have an emergency item or things like that, there are many times we have a minimum number of votes required, and we just need to know whether we're going to have sufficient folks at the meeting. So I'm going to encourage all of us from now on, please, if you, even if it's and sometimes there's late notice things, and I understand that, but if you do know ahead of time, according to our rules of council, we've all agreed to notify the council president of that, because the council president is the one that's putting the agenda together for the meetings and has to understand that in the context whether he has sufficient folks there to conduct business or not. So just an observation there. Okay, great. Next item is we've had the minutes of the January 13th, 2020 regular council meeting have been distributed to council. Are there any corrections to be noted on that? Comments? Okay. If there are no corrections or further corrections, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the January 13th, 2020 council meeting?
So moved.
Great. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, okay. Mr. Duke, would you please call the roll?
Councilman Scruton?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Abstain.
Vice President Urschel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Great. Tonight we have no special presentations for this evening, and now we have an opportunity for audience comments. So if you wish to address the council, please step up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and we just request you keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. So anyone from the audience would like to address the council at this time? Okay, great. Old business, there's no items of old business at this meeting, so now we will move on to new business. Under new business, the first item is Ordinance 2022-01. This is an introduction. Repealing Chapter 1492 titled Registration of Vacant Commercial and Industrial Buildings of the City of Xenia Code. Mr. City Manager, would you please address this for us?
Thank you, sir. This evening, staff is recommending introduction of this ordinance, which would repeal code language establishing registration requirements for vacant commercial and industrial buildings. While the program was implemented with good intent, experience has now shown the practical limitations of the program when consistent adjudication does not accompany our regular enforcement attempts with a program of this nature. What we've observed over the past number of years is that voluntary compliance with program requirements often resulted in an inequitable burden on many of those individuals owning those properties. And other non-compliant property members were not held to account through our adjudicative process. For compliant property owners who are actively attempting to rehab or reuse and resell their viable structures, the program ended up creating an additional burden, financial burden for those individuals, which we found concerning. Staff believes that for the amount of work required to attempt enforcement, the outcomes of limited success combined with the inconsistent accountability that we were experiencing really render the program inefficient and ineffective. We believe it's best to discontinue the program permanently and remove the language from the books with this particular legislation. In lieu of that, we think we should then refocus our efforts instead on other methods intended to improve property owner accountability for the highest and best use for those particular commercial and industrial properties. Staff's engaged conversation through our council committee process on this. I think there is consensus that the program has been problematic. And as a result, we've gotten some endorsement there. So we're recommending introduction of the ordinance this evening as presented for consideration, and certainly whether tonight or at the next reading can have additional conversation as needed.
Mm-hmm. Any questions for Mr. Merriman?
Well, I'm glad this, Mr. President,
Yes.
I'm glad this is being repealed. It didn't have anything for residential properties, and that's where we have the greatest problem, I do believe. So I'm all for this repeal. Thank you, sir.
Mr. President, I just wanted to see if Brian had any additional comments since he joined us this evening from the crowd. You got anything else that you want to add that Brian might have missed?
Absolutely.
Or Brent, sorry.
Sure.
Too many B's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just add that I think the inequity that Brent mentioned is really the core of the issue here. But I think it's also just the general policy of the program had some problems. It diverts building owner resources from doing things like rehabbing their building. It can be kind of a discouragement for new buyers of vacant property when they see that there's this accumulation of vacant building fees on the property. You know, that the fees can be considered overly punitive, like when they add up, they escalate each year to double, and then.
Could you speak up, please, sir?
I'm sorry, I have a habit of doing that. Yeah, it diverts building owner resources from reinvesting into properties. As those fees pile up over time, they become punitive. The escalating fees kind of exceed what really the city's actual costs entailed with these properties. So it becomes kind of a revenue generating program more than something that turns vacant buildings into occupied buildings. So I think just the policy itself is problematic. It needed changes anyway, even if we were going to keep it. But I think just the lack of ability in the judicial process to hold people evenly accountable is really a reason to just get rid of it entirely.
Brian, let me ask one other question while you're up here. So one of the items under this seemed to be gave us the ability to do some code enforcement internal, or at least inspection internal to the building. And I noticed that when you guys discussed that, obviously the fire chief has the right to go into the buildings, whether this was on the books or not. But were we seeing any value from at least a code inspection? Because I know normally we don't have the option of going into buildings without permission of the landowner or request of the landowner from a code inspection perspective, right? So.
Right. I think, well, even in this case, we did have this requirement for annual inspections, but we still had to go through a process of getting permission from a judge, to enter if we had a non-compliant property. If they're not cooperative and they want to let us in, we still need to seek, a court order to get in there.
Right.
So, and like you said, the fire inspector already has some authorities that he can exercise. The placarding of the buildings is another thing that he can do already. Working with the Greene County Department of Building Regulation, that's another entity that really should be the one going inside whenever there are issues on the inside of the building. So I think we can still address that if we have reason to believe that there's a threatening condition inside the building that we need to check out. We can still work through a court order process to get in there and use the property maintenance code or the building code or the fire code to that end.
Yeah. So this is just a thought that obviously this was more, you talk about the carrot and the stick, this was much more of the stick than the carrot in the code, right? Yeah. And maybe we can spend a little bit of time thinking about what we can do to build some rapport with folks who own buildings that haven't been doing much, at least to have some discussions with them and find out, okay, is there anything from the city perspective that's going on that we have some control or influence in that we could help you do, or that we could do to help you want to actually do an investment or, sell for investment, and obviously I believe, I don't know, Jen, I'll ask you this, that if we have past fines, we should have the ability to rescind those within the city. Am I correct with that, if we choose to do that? Right. So even if we get to the point where we're we talk to a building owner, maybe he has an accumulation of these things, and we can discuss a way forward. One of those incentives might be, hey, we'd be willing to rescind, some of these assessments that we put on the building as well too. I don't know, I just think, we just having had a discussion with a couple of the building owners downtown, and obviously you guys have heard a lot of the discussion that they've had, but that might be once again, a better use of our time. And that's not really from a code enforcement officer perspective, that's more from a development perspective. Brent, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I agree, and I think I would invite, and I think we'll have an opportunity in coming weeks or months with council to have more in-depth discussion and getting directive from council on your expectations more broadly from a property maintenance perspective. And Brian and I have had a lot of conversation about this. We've discussed with the law director some potential strategies. A huge problem that we face, whether we're talking about grass mowing in a residential neighborhood or poor conditions of vacant commercial buildings downtown. We have code structure in place today that is helpful, maybe not comprehensive enough, and there may be some changes. But that process is only as good as the full adjudicative function of our court system. And these issues just historically have not been a priority for the courts. And so, a part of the experience with this program is that when we've tried to pursue it, hold people accountable, there's no accountability function through the court.
Right.
So we end up wasting our time and frankly the property owner's time ultimately as well. So I think there needs to be more discussion about council's priorities. How much in the way of resources do you want to put into these functions? We have some neighborhoods and some locations in our urban core that they're not great, and we need to really work on that. But again, that's a manpower issue and a resource issue, and understanding council's priority and what kind of legislative pursuit you want to undertake to make sure that we're upholding that standard. So I think that's a conversation through the course of this year we really need to have.
Yeah.
I would add to that too, that a couple of things, that was one of the benefits of the vacant building. One of the positives that came out of the vacant building program is that it forced some of those conversations with these vacant building owners.
Yeah.
There's no reason we can't continue
having this, right.
Have more partners involved. And a big part of, I would also add that a big part of the time that our code enforcement officers spend is building rapport, trying to get voluntary complaints. That's the most successful way of getting compliance with the code.
Right.
So they spend a lot of time kind of walking that tightrope between building that rapport, persuading people to comply, versus laying down the law when they have to.
Right.
So, and then when Brett mentioned about the the judicial process, we need that support. We also have tools that aren't being utilized, like with foreclosure of tax delinquent properties, where there's nothing we can do other than to continue to mow the property.
Yep.
We need partners to step up and do what they're supposed to do.
Is this principally through the municipal court or the, okay. Great, thanks, Brian. Any other questions for Brian? All right, thanks so much.
Is there an introduction, sir?
Yes, so who'd like to introduce Ordinance 2022-01?
I'll introduce it.
Great, thank you. All right. Next item is Ordinance 2022-02, amending Section 452.11 of the City of Xenia Traffic Code. And Ms. Fisher, can you give us a staff report on this?
I can. I'll try and give you a shorter version than what I wrote. Basically, when you get there are two types of violations for a parking violation. There's a criminal parking violation. There's a non-criminal parking violation. If a city has not made its parking violations non-criminal, then when you get a ticket for a parking violation, it's to be written out on what's called a long form, the Ohio Uniform Traffic Ticket. If you've ever seen one, they're about that long. In 2018, council enacted non-criminal parking violations in the city. We can write short tickets, parking tickets for those, because they are non-criminal. They get processed through our Parking Violations Bureau rather than going as a criminal action through the court. It doesn't show up on the person's driving record, and the cost is usually much smaller, where a criminal case will easily cost you over $100. Parking violation is $25 if you pay it when you get it. There's currently a section in our traffic code, 43609, and it's based on state law, And it prohibits you from parking a vehicle on a street that is not displaying a valid license plate. We did not carry that provision over when we did our traffic, our parking violations. Our current parking code just prohibits parking on a street with an illegal plate or an expired plate. It doesn't say anything about no plates. So what that means is if our officers find a vehicle with no license plate on the street, they have to write out a long ticket. So we're not asking to take it out of the traffic code. We're asking to add a similar provision in the parking code. Rather than just being expired plates or illegal plates, it would now be no valid plate, which would include illegal plates, expired plates. Those can now be written out as a parking ticket on a short form. You don't have to go to court for those. It's a simple parking violation, and that will get processed through our Parking Violations Bureau. So that's the amendment we're asking council to make tonight to our Parking Violations chapter of the code.
Any questions for Ms. Fisher? All right, who'd like to introduce the ordinance?
I'll introduce that.
All right, so introduced. Next item is Resolution 2022-E, supporting the dedication of a section of US 35 between US 42 and US 68 in Greene County to the late Greene County Sheriff Eugene Fisher and declaring an emergency. Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, sir. Staff is pleased to present Resolution 2022-E this evening, which is legislation endorsing the honorary naming of a section of US 35 for our friend, former Sheriff Gene Fisher. Gene, of course, passed away unexpectedly this past year while still in office and after serving Xenia and Greene County with distinction in law enforcement for many decades. Gene was a native of Zinnia, a longtime Zinnia Police Division employee, before advancing to his role as sheriff, of course, where he served for many years with great distinction. So we just want to celebrate Gene's contributions to our community, to our county. And in that spirit, under Ohio law, there is an opportunity to name roadways and bridges, some procedures with that. But leadership from the county has undertaken efforts to name the portion of US 35 from 68 to 42 in Sheriff Fisher's honor. And so we've had correspondence from Greene County to ask for our support. Staff, of course, is highly encouraging this with council. Again, we're requesting an emergency approval of this as the county is trying to fast track that and just get it accomplished as soon as possible in celebration of Sheriff Fisher's contribution. So that is Resolution 2022-E presented as an emergency this evening.
Great. Do I have a motion to pass this resolution as an emergency?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Merriman? And the
Mr.
members of
President,
council? Yes, go ahead.
how was this particular section of roadway selected?
I can't speak to specifically. I had a little bit of correspondence with Commissioner Perales and Brandon Huddleston, the county administrator. I think they wanted a significant roadway, something that would be noticeable, which the 35 bypass is. I think it was important for them to get it in the county seat because of his time as sheriff, as well as his association with the city of Xenia. So, as far as I can say, I think that's why they identified the roadway.
Now, is this only in the city of Xenia, or is it part in Xenia Township?
There's a portion in Xenia Township. My understanding is that at their most recent meeting, I think they approved a similar resolution, in the county commission, I believe, this past week approved a similar resolution as well.
Now, in terms of the signage, who's responsible for erecting signage? Don't see that in...
I'm not certain. I don't think it'll be us. I don't know if that's a part and parcel to the program.
I believe ODOT puts it up and
that's my
maintains it.
understanding too, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Right. Any other questions? Councilman Scrivens and I have been to a number of the county commissioners meetings where they've had discussions on this, and so anyways, I just want to say kudos to the commissioners for working this hard, both to identify the location and to get this moved through. Initially, they thought that they would have to do it through the legislature, and they were talking about a year or so to get this moved, but they worked hard to find an alternate route through our county engineer, matter of fact, and they believe that they could probably get this going here this spring, which would be wonderful. And as they mentioned, because it is on city-owned land and township-owned land, the thoroughfare, that they had to have a resolution by both us and by the township and by the county commissioners to send to the state highway department. And so this will conclude that package that's required for that. And I think anything we can do to help honor the memory of Sheriff Fisher is a great thing to be able to participate in too as well. So good. Well, let's go ahead and any other comments before we call the roll? All right. Let's go ahead and call the roll, please.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
Vice President Urschel?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next item is a administrative motion on the council board and commission assignments for 2022. I believe these have been distributed to folks in the council. The first part of this does not require administrative motion. This is, yes,
Not in it.
Resolution 2022-F.
I'm sorry, say again?
You skipped item number.
I'm sorry, let me do that. The next item is a resolution 2022-F, which is accepting the American Rescue Plan Act Water and Wastewater Infrastructure Program grant funding for the Wilberforce Sanitary Sewer Slip Lining Project. Mr. City Manager?
Yes, sir, thank you. A portion of the ARPA funding made available to the state of Ohio has been dedicated in the current state budget to grant funding for local jurisdictions for the purpose of restoration and replacement of water and wastewater infrastructure projects. A range of project types were available for consideration, and after some internal discussion, staff determined that a sanitary sewer slip lining project would be appropriate, specifically to address inflow and infiltration problems we have in this Wilberforce sanitary sewer system. We liked this project in part because these state dollars would cover territory that's actually not in the city, and thereby saving our local consumers some of those resources. So the program itself, would be a total cost of $750,000. The grant award that's been offered is $562,500 with a local match of $187,500. Staff's recommending introduction of the resolution as it's necessary for the acceptance of the grant per state requirements. If approved, staff will be pursuing a bid process in the second quarter. The intentions, we have a project that we pursue this summer.
Any questions from Mr. Merriman? So just to clarify, these are not, the grant money does not infringe on our ARPA dollars that we received as a municipality, and it's also not coming from the county's ARPA dollars, is that correct?
Correct. These are monies directly allotted by the federal government to the state of Ohio.
Ohio.
The state has determined or established a number of programs, and then the corresponding budget appropriations in the state's biennial budget to fund various programs. So we've brought a couple items related to this back to council, different programs that are ARPA funded through the state of Ohio, and I suspect there may be some more programs. There's some law enforcement funding that's being made available here soon that will likely pursue some opportunities there as well.
Right, and just for folks who are watching ARPA, we use that terminology, but it's the American
Rescue
Plan Act.
Yep.
Right, that was passed last year. Okay.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Mr. City Manager, does this cover the water tower at Central State?
This will only be sanitary sewer main in the Wilberforce area, and those are any of the customers in the Wilberforce area that are on the city's sanitary sewer system. If you recall, the city's the sewer district established regionally, but here locally for our area, exceeds the municipal corporate boundaries. So there are areas around us under that process that are incorporated into our sewer district. So these would be resources to slip line the sanitary sewer in that Wilberforce, that general vicinity.
I'll rephrase my question. Do we supply water to the Wilberforce area?
We supply water to Central State University, and there are a number of residential customers in that general vicinity. Not all of the residential in Wilberforce, but a good number.
Okay, I know some are on well and septic. Then who is responsible for the repair of the water tower? I mean, that's the storage facility.
Yeah, so right now, Central State, the water tower is property of the state of Ohio,
State, okay.
you know, under the title of Central State University. They, of course, had their own closed water system. I can't even really say closed because for many years they were still pumping some water, as were we, which is actually now a violation of OEPA regulation. You have to have a closed system. Their system was brought offline a number of years ago, and we are now the sole provider of water and have been for quite a few years, as a matter of fact, much to the delight of the Ohio EPA, that the city took over that responsibility. So the care and maintenance of the water tower is Wilberforce's responsibility. The problem that the city of Xenia has in that scenario is that we are under license for the water delivery system, but do not have total control over that appurtenance, which is a key appurtenance to that water delivery process. So we strike a careful balance and maintain regular communications and try to participate in the planning for maintenance of that tower, but it's not something we actually do.
Okay, I was just reading here in the prospectus here, and it says eligible projects include wastewater treatment plant improvements, installation or replacement of sanitary sewer lines, which is what we're doing, and then it says water treatment plant improvements and improvements to the water line and the water tower repair or replacement. So there's a caveat there.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, so as we were reviewing this opportunity, we talked quite a bit about the scope and scale of a project that we might pursue. And, you know, there's a little bit of a fine dance, if you will, in terms of, you know, how much can you get for a project versus when do you ask too much and they're going to reject you out of hand because you're asking. So we went a little lower with a little lower scale project. In hindsight, seeing some of the projects that were awarded, I will tell you candidly, I wish maybe we would have asked for a little more, maybe gone a little bigger. But recognize also that within this project was a short notice project. I mean, literally, the state budget was passed in the summer. This program was announced late fall, early winter, and here we are, you know, at this point having received an award. So I mean, very tight timeline. So I would not have wanted to pursue a large-scale project because you know, if you didn't have plans on the books or have the ability to demonstrate what you were doing in fairly short order, you wouldn't have got the project. And moreover, I'm a little concerned about the overall workload of our construction inspection staff this year. We've got a lot of projects in the queue. This is a project that's very easy to oversee. This is a pretty simple project. So again, just sensitive to the workload and demands that we had planned for the year.
Okay, I just didn't want us to be hanging out to dry here. It says water tower repair replacement.
And that could have been an eligible project. Interestingly enough, Central State probably would have had to apply in that context for their tower, and we could have maybe been maybe a joint applicant in support of it.
I was just going to ask to clarify though, because the lines are our responsibility.
The lines, well, we are entering some very interesting.
Never mind. I want to ask. I'm sorry.
No,
I was just trying to clear
the key thing, you know, understand that there's a lot of legal ambiguity about the ownership of the water line to Central State. Right now, we believe it's the state's responsibility. The tower is the state's responsibility, and all of the water distribution on the campus is the state's responsibility. Recognize, however, that under the city's license, that water is treated and distributed. So if they are making errors on their system, which is outside of our control, it can have a bearing on our licensure of record. So that's why this is a very precarious, you know, scenario. And the same is true on the wastewater side. So, you know, again, the Wilberforce sewer system is under our licensure, you know, under our wastewater treatment license. So we have to make sure that that infrastructure is up to date and it's not creating any environmental issues.
Which is then why, okay, that's why it's important to go for the grant funding versus using our dollars. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Thank you,
Just
Mr. President.
a couple other notes on that topic. There was another project that was a little more expensive that we applied for that we weren't awarded. So we did ask for a little bit more money for another project and weren't awarded in that case. And then second, as it relates to water at Wilberforce and that Wilberforce community, a lot of those folks are provided water by the county, but sewer by the city. So there are some weird dynamics there where the county's providing the water, but we're providing the sewer on the other end, so.
I would add also, we've been in communication with Central State, with their leadership, and they are pursuing state capital budget dollars for the replacement of the water main that runs to Central State. Now, that water main starts at 68, goes down Country Club, traverses across the golf course, then out towards Stevenson Road, and then across some fields into the Wilberforce area in Central State. So there's a possibility that we would come back in the future with an ask for some resources to help contribute toward a match, but their intent is to pursue some state dollars for that. To the best of our ability, that water line past the meter pit is not the city of Xenia, it's the state of Ohio's, and that water line is old and is not in great shape and does present a risk for service continuity if it's not upgraded and rehabbed with the better material in the not too distant future.
Thank you.
So we have applied for this grant. We've conditionally been granted it pending us meeting the conditions of the grant, part of which is our resolution tonight, and then the other criteria that we saw in the grant itself, right? There's a number of other criteria that we would comply with.
Yeah, we have to, in passing the resolution, we are agreeing to comply upon signature with all the different requirements that are pertinent under ARPA and under the state's program.
Right, but we don't foresee any reason that this would be, I mean, from the folks who are managing the grant at the state level, that money's been set aside for us pending us. Okay. Great. Well, do I have a motion to introduce this resolution?
I'll introduce it, Mr.
Great,
President.
thank you so much. Okay. All right, now we'll go on to the council and board and commission assignments for 2022. These are in two different categories. The first one are those committees that are under the purview of the council and are created under our rules of council. And as such, at the first or second meeting in January, the council president is to appoint the members to the standing committees of the council. And those are the first ones I'll go over. These appointments do not require the approval of council. They're at the desire of the council president. So on behalf of President Smith, I'll announce his assignments and appointments to the standing committees for the council for 2022. First is our Finance and Budget Committee. That will be chaired by President Smith, and I will be on that committee, Vice President Urschel, and then also Councilman Levi Dean. And then we'll have an alternate, Councilwoman Rebecca Dean. Secondly, for our Legislative Review and Government Affairs Committee, Mayor Sarah Mays will be chairing that. Councilman Thomas Scrivens will be on that committee, and Councilwoman Rebecca Dean will be on it as well, with an alternate of President Wesley Smith. Third, our Property Management Committee. I will be chairing that committee. Councilman Dean and Councilman Branhams will be on that committee, with an alternate of Councilman Scrivens. On Public Safety for this year, Councilman Scrivens will be chairing that committee. I will be on that committee, and then Councilwoman Rebecca Dean will be on the committee as well, with the alternate of Councilman Branham. And then finally, under Public Service and Utilities Committee, I will be chairing that committee. And Councilman Scrivens, you'll be on that committee as well. And Councilman Branham will be the other member of that committee, with an alternate of President Smith. So those are the assignments for those standing committees. Those meet on a as-needed basis. There's no regular assigned meeting rate, and those have been established so that as the staff have items to bring to us, they can start with 3 members of the council and get some feedback and discussion before bringing it to the entire council. Now, per city charter, at the second council meeting of each year, the council president recommends for council approval various boards and commission assignments. And therefore, on President Smith's behalf, I respectfully recommend the following board and commission assignments for this year. First, to the Greene County Career Center's Health Science Academy Advisory Board, Councilman Thomas Scrivens. Second, to the Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission, Mayor Mays, with an alternate of myself. Third, for the Board of Recreation, Arts, and Cultural Activities, Mayor Mays to chair that. Fourth, for the Board of Zoning Appeals, Councilman Branham to chair that, and with an alternate of Councilman Dean. And then for the Community Improvement Corporation Board of Directors, Councilman Rebecca Dean. For the Economic Development Advisory Board, I propose as the chair of that. And then for the Planning and Zoning Commission, President Wesley Smith to chair, with an alternate of Councilman Branham. And then finally, Traffic Commission Chair, Councilman Dean, and I know that we've discussed that this does not meet very often. However, as we have not changed the city charter, we still have a Traffic Commission, and we are still required to have a chair for that. So these Board and Commission recommendations must be approved by a majority of the council in attendance, and may be approved as a whole or by one motion individually. And I would like to see if we have a motion to pass the entire slate there. Do I have a motion on that?
So moved, Mr. President.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second, okay. Any discussion on that before we vote?
Mr. President, these are one-year appointments?
Yes, it's it.
All except for mine.
Except for the Board of Zoning Appeals, which goes through 12/31/2023.
Right.
That's right. As the mayor is
4 years.
ready to hand the baton off there to Councilman Branham, but no, that one will be for a 2-year assignment.
Sorry, Brian.
Is that fair?
I've enjoyed our time together.
I would just throw out that right now, there's nothing in the charter about what the terms are when you're appointed to a chair of one of these boards or commissions. So for planning commissions, 1-year term, and BZA's 4-year term, those are actually set in the land development code.
Right.
But that doesn't conflict with the charter because the charter doesn't address that.
I stand corrected.
If the
Thank you.
charter amendments pass, it will be different.
Right.
It's a great,
Right.
I actually really enjoyed it.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, can I call the roll? I'm sorry, Councilman Scrivens?
No, sir. Thank you.
Can I call the roll, please?
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilman Branham? Councilman Dean?
Aye. Mayor Mays?
Aye.
Vice President Herschel?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Oh, Lord.
Thank you.
We know do it.
All right, at this time, we're going to have some discussion on city-owned property.
Bills.
Oh, I'm sorry, let's go to the bills. I apologize.
Motion.
I skipped ahead of myself there, yeah. So, a final item of business before that, we have a couple items before we talk about property items. The first is, we need to approve the scheduled bills in the amount of $413,753.85, and that's been distributed to council here ahead of time. Mr. Duke, anything to add?
I have nothing to note.
Okay. Council, any questions for Mr. Duke?
Just one, Mr. President.
Yes.
I understand that the city is multivariate. We're involved in a number of different activities. What is the music license about?
I'll take that one. Because artists are, because artists who perform, who compose, artists who compose music that is played on a broader basis, radio, at concerts, whatever that might be, are still, as long as their proprietary rights exist, they have the opportunity to get royalties and proceeds.
Okay.
There are firms out there that represent these artists, and in the interest of protecting the city's liability and not being sued, if we have any events where any of the music might be played that is still under protected status,
Okay.
having these arrangements where they soak us, where we provide payment, provides an opportunity for the city to have some liability should an artist find out that we use their music without permission.
Well, forgive my ignorance. Thank you.
That's all right.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Or on our communication videos, or
Right.
this will cover us across the
Any
board
platform,
for any artists creation that we happen to use is covered by the license.
Yep.
Great.
Brent's starting his rap career right now.
I want my royalties, so.
That's right. Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Duke, will you call the roll?
Did we have a motion? Yeah.
I'll make the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, apologize. Could I have a motion, please, on the bills? Yes, a second?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Second by the mayor?
Sure.
Okay, let's go ahead and call the roll on that, please.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
Vice President Herschel?
Aye.
Motion
Thank
carried.
you. Next is the appointed officials reports. Mr. City Manager.
I have nothing this evening, sir.
Okay.
We'll cover most items in our work session.
In our work session. Good.
Okay.
Mr. Finance Director.
I have nothing.
Just want to give kudos to Ryan. We met this week with a representative of the Fairborn City Council to look at, get a better understanding of how the municipal court is funded and the expenses there. And the reason we're doing this is we're, as many of you know, per the Ohio Revised Code, we are, the Xenia Municipal Court is created by the revised code. The jurisdiction of that, which includes multiple villages and townships outside of Xenia, are put in the jurisdiction of that. And the city of Xenia is required to fund the municipal court less a set of fees that are paid by the county for a portion of the judge and the bailiffs and the clerk of court salaries, and less any fines that are collected for the villages and the townships. However, we're also given the right to apportion the court fees across the other municipalities or municipal areas, but they are not required to pay anything beyond the fees, the fines that they collect. And so the reality is, if you go to Jamestown or Cedarville or Xenia Township or Cedarville Township, you will not find a budget line item for the municipal court. However, there's a fairly substantial budget line item in the city of Xenia, because any costs not covered by the court collected fines are our responsibility per the Ohio Revised Code, and that delta is on the order of $600,000 and is rising each year. We don't get to set the fine structure, we don't get to set the court fee structure, and we don't get to allocate those costs outside of ourselves beyond what's given back to us by those fines. The reason Fairborn is very interested in this is they are underwriting the Fairborn Municipal Court, which services the eastern portion of the state, including Beaver Creek and Beaver Creek Township and the other municipalities on the eastern side of the state, too, on the order of the state. I'm sorry, the county, correct, on the order of $1 million a year, and their costs are rising. So we don't necessarily have a resolution for that, but the first step of any 12-step program is to admit you got a problem and understand the problem. And so Ryan spent a good chunk of time helping us understand how that's been set up, where it is in the revised code, and what our obligations are. Just to let you know, our next step is we're going to be going to a number of other jurisdictions to understand how they're addressing those costs right now. And then we'll probably go over to the city of Fairborn and meet with their finance director and get a better understanding of that as well, too. So more to come on that, but I just wanted to say thanks Ryan for putting that package together and helping us understand that. Great. Madam Law Director, anything from your end?
Well, I will add to what you just said. It's not just the court, it's also prosecution services. Because state law requires us to handle prosecution for any state law violations that occur anywhere in the unincorporated areas of the court's jurisdiction.
Right.
So the cost of that is put on the city as well. And the prosecution cost is not just the prosecutor. With Mercy's Law, it's also the provision of victim advocate services.
Correct.
So much like the court, it's a state mandated cost that we are carrying for a lot of jurisdictions. We are very lucky. Greene County does help us share some of the burden of the actual prosecutor, but there are other costs associated with that the jurisdictions that use us are not sharing. So I think there's a broader conversation to have there. They kind of play together, but that's an unfunded mandate as well.
Right.
The only other thing I had tonight, I just wanted to inform council yesterday, we received a One Ohio, what they're calling a One Ohio toolkit. If you remember, One Ohio is the regional program that's to be set up to handle the distribution of the opiate litigation settlement. I've signed up for a seminar on February 4th. I know there will be some legislation coming down the pike that council will need to pass for us to participate, but I will keep you informed of that as the regional council gets set up and what we need to do.
Right.
So I'll keep you informed of where that's going.
Right.
And that was all I had tonight.
Great, thank you. Any questions for our law director? All right. At this time, we'll go to the reports of boards, commissions, and committees. First is the Property Management Committee. Councilman Scrivens.
Thank you, Mr. President. Property Management Committee met twice since our last session, on the 18th of January and on the 25th. And both times we adjourned into executive session, and we didn't really make any decisions. And we have a couple items that are outstanding that we'll probably need to make a decision on in short order.
Good. Questions for Councilman Scrivens? Okay. The Board of Zoning Appeals that was originally scheduled for 124, Mayor Mays?
It's canceled. Nobody filed for a variance.
Okay, great. All right. We do have some discussions now to do about some the sale of some city-owned land and property, and because of the discussion contents under our charter, the state law, we are going to be going into executive session for those discussions.
After council comments.
Correct, after council comments, thank you. So let's do our council comments, but as soon as that's done, I'd like to entertain a motion for going into executive session. So let's go to council comments. Councilman Scrivens first. You like to start for us?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm gonna have to turn my hearing aid up or ask you guys to speak up, because it's, it goes out over the airwaves, and I crank my TV up, and it's still low volume. So I don't know what I could do short of bringing in a whip and a chair and ask everybody to speak up. Everybody is not in this room. They're out in the world, and we have to hear what goes on in public. That's why it's transparent. So can I just ask once again that anyone who's speaking enunciate so people can understand what you're talking about, and don't call me 50 times between meetings and say, what did they say? So thank you very much, Mr. President, for your indulgence. And that concludes my, oh, and one final thing, condolences.
Can you tell us how you're really feeling here, Tommy? I just want to know.
Hey, all I can say, I go to the Zinnia basketball games, the announcer there, we've nicknamed him Mumbles. If you're speaking, people want to hear what you're talking about. If not, be quiet. Exercise that right. So I'll just rest my case on that. I just want to extend condolences to the family of Richard Dick Olson. He's a longtime sufferer of MS. He just passed away this week. His longtime caregiver, Gloria Davidson, we extend to her our heartfelt sympathy. And they're going to have a service and a ceremony for him, I think, Monday the 7th in New Burlington. So, Dixter, it was a good run, buddy. You hung in there a number of years, and we'll miss you, but we'll see you again. Thank you, Mr. President.
Great. Councilman Brannon.
Nothing further to add here.
Okay. You want to explain tell us about your star you're wearing here today.
I just wore that in recognition of Gene Fisher and promoting the highway project. So, stole it from my son.
Great. Outstanding. Thank you. Thank you. Levi?
I don't have anything to add, thank you.
Okay. Madam Mayor?
Thank you. A couple of events. I wanted to make sure that we highlighted the Martin Luther King Community Service and thank the Xenia Area Association of Churches and Ministries, as well as the African American Ministerial Alliance, for their work that they did on that community service. It was a great service to attend. Councilman Urschel spoke. Pastor Chapman and his church, Zion Baptist, hosted the event, and they did an outstanding job. Our former mayor was there. She sang in a trio. It was a lot of fun to hear her. And then, of course, we had an opportunity to honor Pastor Freeman and his retirement, and also hear a little bit about what's next for him and his vision with his new church on Columbus. So it was a great night, and I'm very thankful for the community there. On the 24th, a couple of things that I was able to participate in and meet with a local business owner here in town, and it's just really exciting to meet with some of our owners and to hear their vision and ideas for downtown, and find ways that we can support, or just talk about ways that maybe if we can't support in that way, we can support in a different way. So that's a constant open invitation, and I'm very thankful for the times that we have to do that, and I was able to do that morning. I was also had the opportunity to host the mayor's lunch here in Xenia, and I always enjoy when the mayors from Beaver Creek and Riverside and Fairborn come to Xenia, and we get to eat here and showcase some of what's going on here in our city. On the 26th of January, Cedarville University posted a podcast with the Mark Weinstein. He interviewed me, and we were able to talk about some of the things that are going on here in Xenia, and I just wanted to thank the university for their time and for allowing me to talk a little bit about what it means to me to be mayor here. So, and then just last, I wanted to thank, there's a lot of people in our community, residents, several business owners, and of course some staff here in the city who've reached out and just been very supportive in the loss of my father-in-law, and just really appreciate when you work with a community that is so caring, and not just text but also phone calls. I've got a lot of cards from people here in the community. Some even came down to the funeral, and it just meant a lot to me and my family, so I just wanted to say thank you.
Great. Thank you. I just want to second the comment about Dr. Freeman. Talk about a man who was just a rock of our community. And Dr. Freeman was 75 years old, just retired from the AME Church here in town, still the chair of the African American Ministerial Alliance, and but he's not finished serving our community. Very active in at Wilberforce University and the community out there as well, and he had the dedication for his new church that he's starting there, the UR Church, and I was able to attend that with a number of other folks last Sunday evening, and he has. He does the chapels at Wilberforce, and he has a number of students in their jazz group out there that leads worship for him. They came Sunday night. I'll tell you, we were just rocking in his church. That was so. I would encourage the community, if he's not looking to pull people from existing churches, but if you don't have a church, you couldn't find a better place to be going to worship with Dr. Freeman and to worship with the young men and women from Wilberforce and some of the other folks. And so it was just a wonderful evening last Sunday night to be there and dedicate that church as well too. I also had a call from Josh Long, who's the president of the Xenia School Board, and this is tentative, but Josh is looking at getting a essay and a speech contest going for the students of the middle and high schools on some patriotic themes, and he just said, hey, would we, from the city perspective, like to participate and encourage that? And so I said, Josh, I couldn't think of a better thing for us to be working on as a community to encourage, and so I just want to let you know on behalf of the council, with my limited ability as one of 7 council members, I told Josh, we'll do whatever we can to participate, and I said maybe we can get our fire department, maybe we can think about some proclamations from the mayor. There's a whole series of things we could do to make this a lot of fun for the students and the community. So I just want to commend Josh on reaching out to us and thinking about us from a city perspective, and so there may be more to come on that. I told him, I said, Josh, you got the stick, but they're also looking at historical topics here for the Xenia area, and boy, you think about our history over the last 200 years as a city. There's just a wealth of topics that we could ask our students to investigate and write on. And he's going to be also contacting folks out at the African American National Museum too, and looking for a number of topics for them to put forward for the kids. And more to come. We may be pulsing folks in our community to think about some topics we'd like to have them to write on as well too. But anyways, I just want to let you know. Glad the council there for the schools is considering that, and I just encourage the rest of us as more to come. The city manager and folks on council, any way we can think to encourage them and participate in that, I think we need to be able to do that. So, great.
Mr. President,
Yes.
forgot to add that I did speak to Miss Katie Vetter, I believe. She's the marketing director for Wendy's, and Wendy's here in Xenia will have their grand opening Monday at 9 a.m.
Great.
And she'd like us all to attend. She said there will be breakfast. I said, I'll be there. So
I'm going to bring all my grandkids.
there you go.
My kids already have it on the calendar.
Thank you, Mr. President.
It's great.
Sad and true.
All right, now, unless there's anything else I've missed, we do have some city-owned property discussions to have, and I would like to have a motion to adjourn into executive session now to discuss that. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second? Mr. Duke, we have the roll call?
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
Vice President Urschel?
Aye.
Motion carried.
We will now adjourn into executive session. We will be moving into our conference room for that, and post that executive session, we're going to have a work session. The work session is public, and if you would like to participate, anybody in the audience that would like to participate in that work session, you're more than welcome. Encouraged to do that if you'd like to. We just ask you to remain here in the council chambers, and if you're still here at that time, I can't say how long the executive session will be going, but at the termination of that, if you're still here and you'd like to participate in the work session, we'll invite you on into the conference room as well too. So let's go ahead and adjourn into executive session.
Okay.